Yesterday, the political stage got messy. For the ODM party specifically that has been going through a session of rifts, it was even messier. There were two parallel rallies that were being held. In Nairobi, Honorable Edwin Sifuna somewhere in Kajwang showed up alongside the governor of Siaya County, James Orengo, the member of Embakasi East constituency, Babu Owino, who is a strong hopeful in the gubernatorial seat in 2027, and the other likes including Joe Amisi, who are actually present in that particular event. And in this event, a lot of political statements were made, including Orengo mwenyewe show up na the exact document that was signed by Raila and William Ruto that was detailing the terms of the 10-point agenda and also giving direction on whether or not this can transform into a coalition. Then away from Nairobi County, somewhere in Migori County and Kisii County, the other sections of the ODM party who are going on with the ODM Linda Ground project were present. Now here there was Junet Mohamed, there was Gladys Wanga, there was Simbarati, there was Oburu Odinga, and of course there was TJ Kajwang. In this episode, we want to put for you the exchanges between Orengo and TJ Kajwang, because while Orengo was saying in Nairobi that he has withstood the storm, that is from the time of Moi to the time of Kenyatta, all the way coming down to the time of another Kenyatta and another time of Mwai Kibaki and Ruto, he has always stood the storm. While from the other camp in Kisii and Migori, TJ was actually bringing up another series of evidence of the number of times that Orengo himself has deflected from the surrounding of Raila Odinga. You understand, this is now happening because each of them are trying to show who was really closer to Raila Odinga. So before we make a lot of political comments on this particular statement, it is important that we start by the statement themselves. For Orengo's end, he was the first saying that if Sifuna is removed from the ODM party because he says there are talks za kutoa Sifuna from the ODM party, then that is the end of the ODM party. He also said that they just buried Raila Odinga a few days ago and still there is still need to respect the Odinga family, of course calling in respect for Winnie and Ada. The same thing that Millie Odhiambo did when they were in Kisumu and got heckled. Now Orengo held that Raila's statements and of course Raila's voice are still there to listen to when someone needs a direction of course what Raila said. With that, ladies and gentlemen, let us just go to the speeches of Orengo directly before we make statements on the speeches of Kajwang.
Super Secretary General mtu akidhubutu kumtoa Sifuna katika ODM Secretary General, yeye ndiye mwisho wa ODM. Kweli ama si kweli? Kweli ama si kweli? Lakini wewe unajua bado tunalia. Bado tunalia sana. Baba alizikwa mwaka jana. Na nataka niseme kwamba lazima tupatie heshima familia ya Raila Odinga. Mama Raila Odinga amepitia mengi sana. Ameishi miaka 10 kama Raila Odinga yuko gerezani. Na watoto wake wakinawini wamepata mateso makubwa sana. Kwa hivyo mimi naomba tumuombee Raila Odinga pamoja na familia yake. Na hatutaki watu wachezee familia ya Raila Odinga. Hatutaki. Mimi nina machache. Mtu akitaka kujua ni nini Raila Odinga alisema, sikia sauti yake, angalia maandishi yake.
that's the point where Orengo actually showed the document that Raila signed. This is the first time that in this particular political rallies, we are seeing a politician now coming up with a 10-point agenda, or coming to the rally with a 10-point agenda and reading it to the people word in after word. And I think this is going to be the move from even the other camp of the ODM party that is part of this rift moving forward, because to consolidate and get that people's support behind your back, then it is important first to clarify for them what was the mode of agreement and what was contained in that particular agreement. So in this particular section of the news bite where Orengo just highlights what is contained on that particular news bite, let's listen in before we bring in further news bites from the other end of the ODM rift, which was taking place in Migori and Kisii, where Orengo was the subject of attack.
Sahihi pamoja na Rais Ruto. Kitu cha kwanza ambapo Raila alisema katika haya maandishi ni lazima tuangalie mambo ya cost of living, hali ya maisha. Anasema kabla kufanya chochote viongozi tuangalie hali ya maisha ya wananchi. Iko kwa maandishi ya Raila Odinga. Sijui kama hali ya maisha yenu ni mzuri. Hali ya maisha yenu ni mzuri. Wengine wanasema tuko kwa serikali. Yule yuko kwa serikali ndani hapa, niinue mkono juu nione. Hebu inua mkono kama uko kwa serikali. Sisi tuko kwa hali duni ya matatizo. Raila akasema, na hapa nikaweka kidole, akasema hii memorandum si ya kuweka formation ya political coalition. Amesema hapa, anasema hapa hakuna mambo ya coalition. Raila alikuwa anasema lazima hizi zitimizwe kwanza ndio tuanze mambo ya coalition. Na haya maneno ni mazito sana na siwezi kuzisoma zote. Alisema watu kushika wakiholela holela na wengine ambao waliuliwa, lazima haki itimizwe na walipe compensation. Akasema hali ya vijana, jenzi mko hapa, Raila kusahau mambo ya jenzi na hali ya akina mama ameweka katika hii mkataba ambao najua mkono wa SG Sifuna ilikuwepo hapa. Kwa hivyo msidanganywe. Raila kusema mambo ya coalition, alisema haki ya wananchi itimizwe kwanza, ndio akiridhika anaweza kusema ya kwamba sasa tunaweza kufanya nao wenzetu kazi. Na alisema haya maneno lazima zitimizwe kabla ya tarehe 7 mwezi wa 3. Sasa hatuwezi kwenda kwa mkataba na chama chochote haswa UDA bila haya maneno yote kutimizwa. Ni kweli ama si kweli? Ni kweli ama si kweli?
Yeah, so that's Orengo's take, and Orengo's take is interesting. It clears all the noise in the air. He's saying that there is no need to have a conversation or go into any coalition agreement without first meeting the requirements that are set out in the 10-point agenda. Now, this is something that most people have been talking about. They have been talking about the implementing the 10-point agenda. And of course, other than media houses just detailing what was contained in the 10-point agenda, the leaders themselves have not taken it upon themselves to actually explain to the people what is in the 10-point agenda. Now, Governor Orengo of Siaya County used that opportunity yesterday to remind the people that of course there was no talks of coalition formation 1, there was talks of ending arbitrary arrest 2, there was reminding Kenyans of the deadline of the 7th March 2026 to be the end of ensuring that all these things have come to an end. There is also the improvement of the state of living, and of course he asked whether the state of living has been improved, to which the people are now saying no. He goes ahead to even talk of a little more other things that was contained in that particular agreement, including and not limited to the opportunity to open those particular servers of elections of 2017 and 2022 to put an end on who actually won the election. And so Orengo was challenging President William Ruto, telling him that if he is a good friend of Raila, or is a good friend of Raila enough, then anafaa kufungua hizo servers tujue ni nani alishinda 2022 and 2027, not because Orengo is asking for that, but because that was part and parcel of the agreement that they both put their signatures to. Of course, after that, he goes ahead to talk about the latest statement by President William Ruto on the Wapumbavu thing, saying that now Wapumbavu wamerefuka. This was a statement that was made by President when he was in Nyeri. President William Ruto, while in Nyeri, was quoted saying that he is not a madman to leave the people that voted him and go solicit for the votes of Wapumbavu. Now, whoever that was addressed to was not direct from the president's statement, but now Orengo and the ODM team have somehow interpreted that particular statement to be meant to, of course, President William Ruto addressing the Nyanza area where he has been seen to be wooing votes lately. Now let's listen to that part of Wapumbavu, and then we bring in the statements of the other advocate of the High Court of Kenya, TJ Kajwang, that were raining on Orengo yesterday.
Bila kufanya majadiliano na Kasongo, lazima tujue alishinda ama aliiba kura. Lazima hiyo, kwa sababu ameweka sahihi hata yeye ya kwamba saba sifunguliwe. Mpaka sasa hawajafungua. Kwa hivyo, I want to ask you good people. The priest, wewe leo, like the sermon, standing the storm. Standing the storm. And me, I can give my own personal testimony that I have stood the storm. Ikiwa ni Kenyatta, ikiwa ni Moi, ikiwa ni Kenyatta, ikiwa ni Kasongo, I have stood the storm. Sasa sisi kama wa Kenya, we must stand the storm. We must stand the storm. Na unajua, ukiwacha mtu amekuwa na mazoea, hata ile utu ambaye imebaki hawezi kukuonyesha. Juzi nikasikia watu kutoka sehemu ambao nimetoka ni wapumbavu. Ni wapumbavu. Kwani nyinyi ni wapumbavu kweli? Ambao mnakuja kwa kanisa kila Jumapili? Tumerebuka. ODM must not be sold. Nilisema hapo mbeleni hawa watu Ukienda siku hizi kwa mikutano ya ODM, ile opulence, wazungu wanasema opulence, na conspicuous consumption. Unaona machopa, unaona viongozi wakija na mambo ambayo ya kushangaza, na chama hii ni chama cha wananchi, si kuonyesha wananchi vile tuko na mali. Kwa hivyo mimi nasema kwamba ODM is the biggest party in the Republic of Kenya. It has always been the biggest party in the Republic of Kenya. Kila chama iko Kenya inatamani kufanya kazi na ODM.
Now that's it, ladies and gentlemen, from the servers opening and the Wapumbavu talk. Orengo now says he has stood the storm over all those particular presidents, and now he requires President William Ruto, who put his signature to the 10-point agenda, of course, to agree for the servers to be opened so that Kenyans can know, saying that that is a prerequisite to getting into any coalition talks, and that should be done by 7th of March this year. Now, as Orengo is talking about withstanding the storm, he is portraying himself as someone that has been in the scene, of course, because he has and has fought for the democracy and the interest of the Kenyan people. Yet from the other camp, they were still within the ODM party, but the other rift of the ODM party, Honorable Kajwang feels like Orengo should not be talking about such instances, because Kajwang himself has receipts saying he has also been here long enough to see the political journey of Orengo, and he can now clearly confirm that there is a lot of one single instance when Orengo himself chose personal interest over Raila Odinga. Now he says that Orengo right now is working with babies. He calls Babu Owino and Sifuna babies, saying that Orengo is trying to say that he knew more information from what was coming out of Raila, more than even the brother of Raila Odinga himself, who is Oburu Odinga. Now TJ feels that Orengo was just but a legal officer of Raila Odinga, who was paid his legal fees, and so the information that he knows about Raila Odinga cannot go in depth compared to the information that Oburu knows about Odinga. Now this was the first time that these two advocates of the High Court of Kenya, who are in these two different camps of the rift, were exchanging words directly. Now let's just go quickly to that particular statement of TJ Kajwang when he was talking to Orengo, telling Orengo that he's been here long enough and he knows of those particular instances when Orengo did not stand with Baba.
All our MCAs from Nairobi, I see there's an E-group. You have traveled all the way this morning. I asked the Ammonite. And then there is somebody called Salabat, the Honorite. Then there is somebody called Geshem, the Arab. These people, their duty was to think and antagonize Nehemiah every single day. When Israelites were coming from captivity, the temple of Jerusalem was ruined. And God gave the oracle to Nehemiah to rebuild the temple. Like God has given Oburu the authority to rebuild ODM after the loss of Raila Amolo Odinga. But there were three people who continuously, contumaciously, Kisungu kubwa koroling winji Kisungu, opposed everything that Nehemiah did. Today I see the spirit of Tobias. They were there, walking gallantly every single day, opposing Oburu Odinga. Another one is saying he's senior counsel. I'm a well-trained lawyer for 35 years. And I'm a ranking member of ODM. I'm doing my third term. And it is me who must say these things. Today I want to bless him, senior counsel. I was there in politics when we went to Thika. And you opposed Raila Odinga. And you ran away with Wamalwa. I was there in politics when on that fateful day, when we went to LDP, you ran away and formed your party through Mageuzi to be able to oppose Raila. I was there that day when When we filed the election petition, I will not tell you what we did, but him and me, we know. Every single moment, every decisive area, you continuously oppose the movement of Raila Amolo Odinga.
Now, TJ Kajwang brings those revelation, including when their petition was being filed, saying that in every step of the journey, Orengo has always opposed Raila Amolo Odinga, and saying that traces all the way back to when Wamalo was still alive, all the way to in the recent when they were actually lodging the election petition, saying that he might not actually disclose everything that happened, but is actually aware of what happened, and in whatever happened, Orengo was opposing Raila Amolo Odinga. We are keeping our lenses, of course, and our mirrors in this particular story from the ODM party to see what comes out of it now that the other camp has decided to attack Orengo for actually working with this young generation. Keep it here at the People's Mirror for our next episode.